All right. Hello again. This is Psych Monkey bringing you another interview this time. This time we have a gentleman who's been a teacher and an administrator on many levels across a couple districts. He's going to speak to you about the anxiety and stressors out there facing us during this pandemic. Let me pause until he knocks on the door, and then I'll introduce you. And he's knocking on the door. How about that for timing? As he comes in, somebody do that drum roll thing. There he is. All right, connection to audio.
Danny.
Hey, brother. You want video on?
Sure.
All right. Hang on.
Gotcha.
You know how to do that?
Whatever you need to.
All right. We got our technical difficulties figured out. We got enough education. We eventually know what we were doing.
Well, that's what this thing's all about, being creative.
That's it. All right. So I've already identified the channel. So you'll see my partner back here, the monkey head.
Sure.
So the shtick is to poke a little fun at psychology. I call it Psych Monkey.
Okay.
But I've already introduced the premise that we're doing another interview with someone regarding the stressors and anxieties during this pandemic. Usually with the script where we start, Bo, is, I told him you have some educational background, but I don't even know the plethora. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell them about your career path as much as you want, synopsis of your resume, VT kind of thing.
Okay.
For the record, folks, this is a veteran. This is not just a veteran. This is a Marine, okay? So I want you to recognize that. Go ahead, sir.
My name's Robert T. Beaumeyers, and I'll give you a little bit of my background in terms of you do need to know the fact that when I was growing up, I wasn't a very good young man. And so I spent my high school years in a military school just above Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, absolutely, in New Bloomfield. Yeah. And they just recently closed after 235 years of helping young men or young boys become men.
Yeah.
It was not an easy road, but I was very successful. As soon as I left home, I think I realized that if I was going to do anything with my life, I had to adjust to that. And it was very, very good for me because I think I was pretty smart. But the fact of the matter was that I wasn't really highly motivated. And so when I was put in a situation where I had to motivate myself, I wasn't going to run away from the place like a lot of kids did.
Right.
I became
you don't run from challenges.
Nah, not going to do that. And so I advanced and actually I was there for 4 years. It did have a junior school, and I was the third highest ranking person there, with my two superiors having been there for 7 years. So I worked very hard. Then I went through a pretty difficult time with my mother passing away, but I got myself to Villanova University that fall and didn't do quite well there. So I walked away from Villanova at the end of the school year, had some credits, and was going to go into the military because of, in fact, Vietnam was heavily involved in 1967-68. Came down to Shepherd University. It was a college at the time. Went down there to just go for a semester because I was going to be drafted. Long story short, I volunteered for the draft at Christmas. They decided to put me, because I was in college and doing well, in the Marine Corps officer program, which allowed me to graduate, but gave me the commitment, of course, when I got out of college. I was, in fact, in the Marine Corps while I was at Shepherd College, and then, of course, went in for 3 years. I served with Colonel Oliver North and a lot of different things, and was heavily involved. At that time, we had racial problems, had all kinds of things. Of course, those of you who know the history of Vietnam, very supportive in the beginning, not as supportive at all at the end. And so I was involved in the Marine Corps Human Relation Program and was also as we were trying to bring the Marines back, we were trying to get them integrated into the society on the West Coast, which was a very difficult thing. So I dealt with that too, along with alcohol and drug addictions with my young Marines. While I was in the service, got my first master's degree from Pepperdine University in Los Angeles. Not the Malibu campus, Danny.
Sorry. Let me interject a question. Yeah, Pepperdine's very impressive, but Villanova ain't no slouch school either, there, sir.
Well, I should have finished there.
What did you get your bachelor's in?
In English and physical education, dual major.
Okay. So then your master's was what?
It was in education, but it was in systems analysis of education.
It's all right.
Yeah. Then as we go forward, I high school teacher, coach, was also a college track and field coach, where a lot of my my coaching was a lot psychological, those kinds of things, getting students to athletes to perform.
Your coaching was leadership. Your coaching was leadership, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so and there was quite successful, had 144 All-Americans at Hagerstown Community College, 7 national champions. Then went on, took a 2-year hiatus out of education because I was about 38, 39 at the time, thought I'll try business. Did that, worked in the car business for a couple of years as a sales manager, again, a leadership position.
Right.
And then came back and worked my way through substitute teaching, whatever, to teach, coach at the high school level before I became an administrator. I also, while I was at Hagerstown Community College, I got 2 degrees from the United States Sports Academy, one in sports medicine and one in sports administration. So that's the academic.
Bo, I'm worried about you, buddy. I'm worried you don't have any goals or aspirations, no drive, you know?
Well, I like to think of myself, Danny, and I don't know that you've heard this. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm an experiential adventurer.
Buddy, I tell you what, you are an achiever, okay? And go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to say, I've always loved working with people. I've always loved, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, as we go on, but I've always believed that you have to have a plan. You got to execute your plan and then go ahead and review your plan and replan. And I do that on a daily basis. I'm sitting here with you with my list for today.
Oh, man, that is awesome. Now, there's one step left, and I don't know if you want to identify where you're currently at, but that's how I met Bo, is when he was a high school administrator for Berkeley County Schools in Berkeley, West Virginia. Do you want to speak to what you're doing now before we jump into the questions?
Sure. Now I'm a consultant and I work with Berkeley County Public Schools, and that will finish up at the end of this school year. And I currently also work with Washington County Public Schools in Maryland, where I spent a lot of my career.
Are you an employee for them or a consultant for them, Bo, may I ask?
It's interesting that I'm both. I'm a consultant on school safety and school culture, but I'm an employee because I'm a hearing officer for expulsions and appeals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to bias the viewers. Some of the viewers are going to know right away. They're going to be super stoked. They're going to be excited. But the viewers who don't know you, I think, are going to love listening to you. I mean, just the beginning is already awesome. But my biased perspective of Bo is obviously positive, but I didn't know him from Adam before. But when I first met him, there's just a way that he carries himself. And this is not me kissing up, okay? Bo knows I'm not nice to people I don't genuinely respect, not to be a judgy old man, okay? I don't have enough energy for that crap.
Right.
Just something about Bo, the way he interacted, the way he led, and quite frankly, you heard him talk about how he started in substitute teaching for Berkeley County. Well, he had already been teaching people before that at high levels too. This is a man who's been a Marine officer, has already been a teacher, already been a coach of some very successful student athletes. He's willing to step back, step down, use the phrase. He's willing to get back in the trenches and earn it, That's the kind of guy he was when I met him. Bo was the kind of guy that would say, what do you know to do? Do what you know to do. And he wasn't leaving you to hang on the branch. Now, there are those kind of people out there. That wasn't Bo. Bo also said, you need anything, I'm the first one you come to. And he didn't ignore you. He didn't give you any of this crap, I got another meeting. Bo was the guy Okay, that's the guy. I know why his Marines followed him. I would have followed him. I wish some of my duty stations had half the ethics. But so clearly, I deeply love and honor Bo. Okay, but with that said, Bo, you clearly have a lifetime of experience when it comes to what most of us would call stressors and anxieties. Okay,
Mhm.
bring in everything you want. What do you hear as a professional? What do you know as a person for the anxieties and stressors that professionals and families are facing?
Well, I think the first thing, Danny, and I just mentioned it, I think that what's important is that we can only control what we can control. That's number one. Number two, we're on a journey, okay? I'm 71 years old. I'm on the back end of my journey, but I'm still got energy and I still want to make sure
I was
that
gonna say, I
I
forget
am.
you're 71. You don't act 71, Bo. I don't think you know what 71 is. Go ahead, sir.
It's just a number, my friend.
I
But
guess.
But what I want to say is that you have to have a plan if you're going to be successful. And I think much of what we're facing now results from a complacency that everything is going to be the way that it is. And it's just not. In fact, today is very different than yesterday. We may do some of the same things, but we're one step further in the journey. And that's a very important piece to put down. And if we want to be a participant in this life, we have to be engaged in that. And we can't sit back and blame other people. We can't be a victim. And we have to come up. We're certainly going to deal with emotions. We have to do that. We may have to grieve. We may have to do that. But we have to step forward when that process is done and move forward.
Well, you're killing me here because you're covering two topics in the script, but I think you and I might jump back and forth in more of a conversational style. But
Sure.
so already I've heard you say, well, really, I've heard you say a couple of reasons why the stress, and I've heard you give a couple solutions already. And I have this presumption. For those out there, I was in the Army. I say only in the Army, not to disrespect the Army, but love the Marines, spend a lot of time with them, get out of their way, let them do what they do. But I already knew this about you, but you brought up what my ears heard is you saying, stay calm in the storm, be cool with it. And you're the kind of guy, literally and metaphorically, forgive me for being too blunt here, sir, you've been under fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly what that means. You're not just talking out, you know what, own it. You're not just some college boy who never saw combat, and I thank God for that, who can say, look, you need to be strong under fire and stay calm. A lot of us are trained for that, but you've carried through on that. But that's what I hear you saying to these families. Okay, I understand that anxiety you're facing is the unknown. Well, you can't control the unknown.
Right.
What you can control is staying calm. Okay?
And that's exactly right, Dan. We've got all of these outside indicators, okay? Most of us in this area, the COVID-19 certainly affects us because we're being reduced in our ability to move, reduced in our ability to communicate face-to-face, those kinds of things. So the government has told us that. So how are we going to go ahead, and we can't flip out, okay? We have our children, we have our families.
Right.
The other thing that I think is important, Danny, through all of this is to make sure that you look and do beyond yourself.
Okay.
In other words, okay, anytime and when I see these individuals and organizations who are helping other people, what I've found is that if I can get into that battle, whatever that happens to be metaphorically,
Right.
then I'm a lot better off because I'm helping other people. And whatever I'm going to get, whether it's materially or whatever else, is going to be a result, okay, of my ability to help other people because none of us is in total isolation.
All right,
Maybe for a short period of time.
So to another one of your points that my ears are hearing, and I'm translating to a certain degree here,
Sure.
You talked about the unknown. You talked about staying calm. But in the unknown, there's that feeling of helpless, that anxiety where I feel out of control. But even before that, before I jump to that, I had heard you talk about don't blame. That doesn't help. I heard you talk about take ownership. And you're not suggesting that people take blame. You're saying take ownership of what you can control. Stop worrying about who to blame, who's at fault, who's doing right or wrong. What are you doing, and are you doing the best you can do?
That's exactly right. And I think, we are, in a very polarized
Yeah.
society now. And I think what it is that we're not taking responsibility for our actions.
Right.
And we are in a blame society. And individually, we have to realize that that doesn't do anything to help us, nor does it do anything to help anybody else. And that just continues the polarization.
You and I both know that complaining up the chain, blaming the chain, ain't gonna be anything positive for you coming back, But what I also, go ahead, sir.
Absolutely, yeah.
What I also heard you say is helping others. And again, this is my bias and my interpretation, so correct me where I go wrong. Helping others actually gives me a sense of purpose, but also gives me a sense of control and consequently a sense of calm.
Absolutely. They all are linked together, with the first thing being helping that other person takes my emotions and forces them someplace else.
Well, I'm not
And
so hyper focused on wallowing in my stress.
yes, yes. And if I help that other person or people, then I don't even need an acknowledgement from them. I will see that they have benefited from whatever it was that I did.
Well, see, that's where the real self-control is. You've come to that moment, that enlightenment level, whatever, that realization. The reward is not in someone external to you validating you. The reward is in you have a self-validation because you set a goal, you put a plan, you achieved it, helping others.
And that's the difference, of course, between external motivation and
Right.
internal or intrinsic. And I've just never certainly received lots of accolades, but that's not what I do things for.
No, but you know what? That's what I'm saying though, and that's why. I mean that. Look, some people watching this will be like, "Oh God, Danny, shut up! Quit gushing over the guy." You meet him and not gush over him. There are just certain people in life you meet, you're like, "Oh my God," okay? Like I can't imagine meeting Ollie North. I'm like, the guy's a ridiculous hero in my mind. Okay, whatever. Without breaching any confidentiality, sir, are you able to speak on what you're hearing in your work with both counties? What you're hearing institutional stress or what they hear from family stress? What other things are we concerned about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I hear, and I do have a daughter who teaches in Frederick County, Virginia, so I have communication with her, of course, and her frustrations, and I have to bail her out of her emotional things from time to time.
Yeah.
And she'll call, "Oh, Dad," and although she's 41 years old, she still relies on the old man.
You're still dad, man. You're still dad.
Yeah, I
Man.
know,
Yeah.
I know, I know. But what I am hearing is that in both organizations, they have good leadership at the top. And Dr. Murphy seems to be a good superintendent, very experienced, obviously, in different places, which I think is important.
Right.
And then Dr. Michael over in Washington County has been there for a long time. He and I were peers. So they've got good leadership at the top. And they direct, and they create the vision as any leader does. And I think through all the problems and we really haven't prepared for this. I mean, we did online learning, at the post-secondary level, 10 years ago. And now we're forced into that. And they're handling it as best they can. But the stressors are that they are not, the students. I don't know that the attendance level consistently is as good as it should be. That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
And, they've had to adjust so many things basically because of the organization and the structure that education has been for the last 50 years.
And you're not talking about just those two specific counties. You're talking about the national philosophy of it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we still do the same things that we've done every year. And done them since I was in high school. And so now, with all the differences in our societies, we've got, our shooting, we've got all those kinds of things that are daily stressors.
Right.
That if you work on that plan and you consistently review the plan, you can cut down on that stress. So I think anytime there's an initial, when you get that first round down range, okay, there's that excitement and negative excitement that occurs, but you have to, once that's over with the initial thing, then you've got to make sure you've got your plan.
I just smile because I like that you use the phrase downrange. I know what that means. I'm not sure how many others will, but I love it. Look, I'll admit I wasn't the greatest soldier, the most well-behaved. I stayed out of trouble, but and I'll admit it's so much nicer to think about it nostalgically, especially on crappy weather days when I know I don't have to go out and stand in a foxhole somewhere. So you made a couple points I'd like to ask you about. I think the first thing is to acknowledge that my ears heard you saying that the leadership at the top is competent, and quite honestly, I hear you implying, my opinion, that they're realistic. They realize we are adapting a very old system to a very real, novel situation. Not to steal a word from the medical doctors, but it's almost as if the anxiety really is what all those existential psychologists talk about, being that impetus to change. But this anxiety is going to compel us to be better, and we do have good captains at the helm, Speaking of which, Captain Myers, okay? But the question I have for you too is, because I know that you've been in the biz a long time, and you've thought on much higher levels than I do. All of this growth towards virtual, you know what I mean? I've been wondering why we don't reach out to the virtual schools and charter schools. Are they, you know what I mean?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we really have. Now, by the way, this crisis, this chaos, is just an opportunity for great growth and great change. The difficulty is that education, okay, is such a big thing with tentacles from the federal government, the state government, and essentially, it's a local thing. And so you've got all of those different pieces in it, which takes me back to my systems analysis of education. It was my first master's degree, that you have to have a level of structure, but you also have to have a level of fluidity between all of those entities where there's communication, and not control, but cooperation and communication. So there's going to be a lot of change, I believe, into virtual learning. And I believe that what we will do, if we continue with the social distancing and that type of thing, that you're going to see a very different model where they're either going to split schools up. We have large high schools. That's, of course, a big consolidated thing from the 60s, where we're going to split kids up into various days or morning and afternoons. This may be an opportunity to do 4-day-a-week teaching in that realm. And then on Fridays, do professional development for the teachers, which we can never get to now because we're taking people out of the class. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to move towards a different model.
All right, so already right there, Bo, I'm hearing you say, and we're going back to that in my mind, that anxiety that people are facing is not having control. But I hear you saying that to have control in the situation, I might have to let go or not hold the steering wheel, but simply to trust my leadership, cooperate, have faith that we have good leadership to get us there. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, sure. And I think
we have good people. We have good people that can carry out the orders.
Thank you. You caught to my next thing, and that is the biggest thing is that we need to hire the right people for the right jobs and train them consistently. And one of the difficulties in education is that because of the schedule that we've got, this is my dog Finny, who just stopped in, by the way.
Oh, by all means, introduce to the camera. I mean, look, not to segue here, not to interject here, Bo, but we're working on 25 followers for this channel, okay? I've got some consultants of my own trying to help me out. My 14-year-old daughter puts the cat on TikTok. over 23,000 followers, over 140,000 views. I asked her if I could interview the cat. Okay.
I got you. I got you. No, Finn's okay, and he's not whining too much.
Oh,
But we have to go ahead and make sure that we do good hires. But then we have to support those people. And many times what we do is we hire the person. We don't really tell them exactly what it is that our expectations are. And when we don't expect, and then we don't inspect and support, because my job, if I hire the wrong person, guess whose fault that is? That's mine.
Right. Well, you know, I hear you make another point too, though. So we need to train these folks so that they have the right mental perspective. But even before that, I heard you saying to us as an audience, look, it's a matter of perspective how you think about this, because you called it a crisis, but you said to us, I'm putting some words different here, look at this as the opportunity to do whatever is the next step, to grow, to move forward, to do better, to survive, and you will survive, you know. But
absolutely,
you have a different perspective than a lot of people, which is a good thing, you know.
Well, it been in a lot of life and death situations, and it gives you a perspective that this journey, I don't want it to stop too soon, okay, but it's going to stop sometime.
Yeah.
And so I will say that, you know, I want to live as fully and have as many experiences as I possibly can. And once I recognize that it is a crisis, then I can go ahead, take those challenges and create something different.
So you're a Marine. I know how you guys are from the outside, okay? Forgive me for being blunt. When the body lays down, I'm pretty sure your soul's going to take less than a half second to get up and say, look, I got work to do. All right, you people don't know how to stop, you know, and you know, I have much love and respect for the Marines because my uncle, who was a corpsman in Vietnam, said they were the reason he came home alive, you know. So, yeah, you don't know how to quit, buddy. I'll probably still be talking to your ghost when you're gone, and you might actually answer me. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see what that journey is going to be.
Right. Well, so you know, you talked a lot about the stressors and the coping strategies for families, and you're being very realistic. And I want to get into, you know what, let's flip this script a little bit. Let's go to the resources. Where can the lay person, because they're not on the inside like you or I might be, because I'm asking teachers and the professionals to share this with others, to share this with those who think it would benefit, that kind of thing. Where can the lay person go to find some answers, to alleviate some anxieties, to get some support from their schools or otherwise?
Well, I think certainly your school counselors, you know, they're right there. My experience with the counselors in my 45 years of education have all been very dedicated people, and they will reach out and they work so very hard. You know, if you've got a favorite teacher, okay, that can be a person who will provide you with some guidance, etc. I think the other thing is I think we should all be reading all of the time. Okay, there's so much now that wasn't available when I was a young boy. You know, just go to the internet, go ahead and Google crisis, Google stress relief, whatever. There's so much.
Do you remember the door-to-door Encyclopedia Britannica salesman?
Absolutely.
You remember the days? These kids wouldn't know what the heck that is. They, you know.
Absolutely. I'm not sure they know what paper and pencil is now.
Right. Yeah, I was interviewing somebody, and they mentioned that people were getting ideas for the newspaper, and I stopped them. And I said, did you hear what you just said? You just said that preteens and teens are reading newspapers. I said, they don't read newspapers. Like, this is, you know.
Sure.
You also brought up reach out to the teacher. And what it made me think of was, you said if you have a favorite teacher, and that immediately made me think of if you have a relationship with somebody, reach out to them. If they are not the exact person, they might know who is. Or if there's someone like me, I might have a leader that I can go to like you, or my direct supervisor right now, Michelle Tost, or our assistant superintendent, David Gilly. Dr. Murphy's a little bit higher than my rank, so I typically don't try and call him up, you know what I mean? But so if my favorite relationship doesn't know, maybe they can help me get somebody who does and who can end up helping me.
Well, again, Dan, I think what you speak to there is don't isolate yourself. You know, everything that we do, whether it happens to be in anything, you know, there's a team there of some sort. It may be a structured team, it may be an unstructured team. And that's all the way up the line. And so reach out to somebody who you trust, reach out to somebody who you know, and just ask them. And I think the worst thing that anybody can do is not to reach out.
Right.
That then leads to the isolation, the depression, all of those crazy things that are negatives that you don't need.
And the worst thing about me reaching out to somebody who doesn't have the answer is really I'm in no worse position than I was if I hadn't.
Absolutely.
At least I got a chance to talk to somebody, let some of it out,
Yeah.
You're all about this stuff, and I'm going to lead you here. Just for the viewers out there, we're owning this script, we're violating, and we're not stuck by the numbers. Okay, this is Bo freaking Myers. Okay, he does leadership. He'll make sure I don't get too far off the trail here. But you have a lot of passions. And I want to bias you before you start talking about fly fishing or your grandkids, because I know you're a great guy. You got a great family. You would love to talk about them. But when we were working together actively, you used to give me books. And to me, that's a passion issue. You were always giving away knowledge. I believe the last book I remember you giving me was The Four Tendencies.
The Four Agreements.
Four Agreements. Why do I feel that? Because I'm being honest, I cannot recall them. I'm looking over on my bookshelf to see if I have them here. I left them in my office at work. Why do I feel like that would be relevant to the times now for advice for people, for some insight for people? What am I thinking?
Sure. Well, the book is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, okay?
Yeah.
And I found that book when I was going through a personal crisis years ago.
Okay.
And it resonated with me. Now, by the way, it has been on the bestseller list multiple times. I give the book away. I get it on Amazon for $5. I give it away to people that I think, I don't just give it away, but to people who I think may benefit from it. And
it was a much appreciated, great gift, honestly.
And essentially the four agreements are, okay, be impeccable with your word. In other words, be honest, okay? Number two, don't take things personally. So whatever if you're mad at me or whatever, that's your perspective, okay?
Right.
Now, if I may agree with that, but if it's not an agreeable thing, then I'm not going to take it personally. The third step or agreement is don't make any assumptions. Ask a lot of questions.
Right.
And that's one thing that I've always done is, and I will drive people crazy because I want to get to what it is that you really are saying to me.
Right.
And then the last thing, very simply, is just do the best you can every day. And so through this very small book and this very wise person, through Indian, Mexican, Toltec spirituality, it has just helped me tremendously. And so I recommend that one. The other book that I recommend, and I'm not going to curse here, but this was a bestseller too, and I think you've seen this one.
And folks, that's coming from a Marine. And we'll tell you, as at least in the Army and the Marines, I don't want to badmouth the Navy and the Air Force, but in the Army and the Marines, there's a joke that every fourth word is a certain word. In the Marines, it might be every 2 or 3 words in the Marines. I don't know.
Well, but that's behind closed doors, Danny.
Right.
Okay, but the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a...
Yes, I remember that. I love that. Yeah.
Right. And what it's about, very simply, very small book by a guy by the name of Mark Manson, is find out what's important and forget about the other stuff. And
now, I'll be honest with you, Bo, I hid that title in my office because I didn't want my boss to get the wrong idea, okay? but loved it. Loved it otherwise. Okay.
Well, I do have to tell this little tale, Danny, and that was given to me by our school district attorney, Laura Sutton, if you remember Laura.
Love her.
And we had worked on several very, very difficult cases, had to go to court a couple of times. And so she got the book. And at the beginning seminar, before she left the district and went to work for a private organization, she got in front of every administrator in the district. And she said, well, I just want to share this book. And I just want to tell you that I've just read it. And she said, I am going to give this to one person in this room. And of course, everybody, it's not going to be me. It's going to be the superintendent or somebody else. And she pulled me up there and she said, Bo has got this down. Now, whether I do or not, I do know that the book is good, and it does get you to think about what's important and kind of forget about what's not important.
Well, I think it fits all the philosophy, all the insight you've been providing for the viewers here. I want to translate, say, don't sweat the details. Don't worry about the negatives out there. Going back to that first book, focus on being the best you can be.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to love you. And if you're popular all the time, you're not doing your job, you know, whether it be as an administrator, psychologist, parent. But yeah, I know you give a bleep. If you don't let the haters, is that still cool to say? Taylor Swift said it, but the haters, you don't let them dictate to you. You are a person, and I think this is good insight for people. You set the goal. You remove all the emotionality to it. This is our goal. This is what we need to do. This is what I need to do. This is my part of that goal. And I tell you what, if something knocks you off the goal, you get back on that track. And you are, with respect said, not hyper focused, but you don't lose focus. And that's the thing. A lot of people get distracted by the nitty gritty negatives out there.
Right.
And that's not healthy. And I think that's the same thing with all these anxieties. Going back to what you said in the very beginning. Stop worrying about what you can't control and focus on what you can.
Yes. Yeah.
So. Well, I tell you what, Bo, you're just an awesome guy to talk to. I miss our talks, man. I truly do. I can't imagine how much of a better person / professional I would be. I might try and guilt you into coming back. Okay?
Well, you know, I'm always available for consult. Hey,
that's awesome,
you know, it used to be I'd get you in there and you'd come, you know, because your role is so different, Danny. You're going from crisis to crisis. I'm controlling the crisis in my school. And you would come in and I could tell, you know, that you'd had something at another school or some issue that you'd had to deal with. And I'd pull you into the office and you'd be running around and I'd say, Danny, come on in. We're going to do a checkup from the neck up.
There you go. Yeah, I like that phrase. Yeah.
And then I'd close the door. I'd close the door and anything that you would want to say, anything at all. But then when that door opened, we were going to smile when we walked out.
Absolutely. Well, I could never talk about the details, but I knew that if I was struggling with something, I could give you the metaphor, hey, I'm struggling with leadership, or I'm struggling with professionalism, or what do you do when? Because in both our jobs, it's naive to think we get to deal with just one person. Even if just one person's in front of us, there's a whole host of other people in that equation. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We have to contend with whom we have to contend. So I biased you a little bit there, Bo, and got you to talk about your books, but what are some of your passions, whether it be positives or what are you passionately worried about for the people right now? You know, what are some things that we can put out there?
Sure. I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to get, when we can, get out of that house, go for a walk. Remember, okay, that you have to take care of yourself first and foremost.
Absolutely.
And so if you stay in the house and all you do is you pine away, that's not going to get you where you need to be. So you need to get out of the house when you can. You need to take that long walk. Run, do whatever you want to do. I mean, today, of course, it's raining, and I think probably when we finish up, I may go up to Fort Ritchie and do a little bit of bad weather kayaking so I can practice, you know, anything that's a hobby. The other thing, I think you have to take controlled risks. All right. That's an important thing. And so, you know, find activities, find passion. What do you like? If you're a gardener, go out there and grind up the dirt. But you have to find something, again, it's outside of yourself that's going to go ahead and assist you. There's one more book, Dan, that I wanted to mention.
Please.
And it's Positive Addiction by Richard William Glasser.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Okay.
Okay. So, and that came out, well, way back. The first time I picked it up was when I was a track coach at Hagerstown Community College. And of course, it deals with meditation, it deals with yoga, it deals with exercise to get away from those negative addictions that we can get into, whether it's alcohol, drugs that take over our lives, that kind of thing.
Dr.
But
Glasser's a genius.
oh my gosh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, so just to come back to, I want to put a disclaimer out there. When Bo says, and correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, when Bo says you got to take calculated risk, he's not telling you people don't wear your mask, okay? Let's not be silly. He's saying step outside of yourself and do something new, something different, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
It can break up that pattern of wallowing or that pattern of stress. You bring in something new that's positive, that can help you. You know?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but Dr. Glasser,
Yeah.
wrote control
Harvard.
theory, choice theory. Yeah, love Dr. Glasser. Yeah, Dr. Glasser says it's up to you how you see this. It's up to
Yes.
you to a certain degree how this turns out. Now, I can't control the world, but I can control whether Danny gets sick, hopefully. You know what I mean? I
Yep.
can wash my hands. I can do all those things I
Sure.
need to do.
Sure.
Oh, you're awesome, man. I love talking with you. Let me say goodbye to everybody. But before I do, actually, I don't forget. Do you want to give me any contact or promote anything, or they
Well,
can just
sure. I do have my company is Educational Consultants Inc.
awesome.
My email address is rtmyers, myers 123 at Gmail.
Nice.
And you can contact me that way. I am available. I'm particularly in organization, school leadership, any type of leadership, really. I'm just passionate about what I do and the success that I've had. I've been working with both of my school districts virtually, communicating with the teams and I particularly work with assistant principals, new administrators, trying to give them a perspective. Yeah.
I was going to say, is any client too small, or can it be any individual or any institution that reaches out?
No, it could be, and I presented in front of large organizations, that type of thing. I really do like the small group or the individual type of thing. In my roles right now, I work in Berkeley County with 4 different individuals, but in Washington County, I work with 4 different schools. So, I've done both of those things. So,
Do that one more time, Bo, because people might have heard that and got excited. Do your company again and the contact information
okay.
again.
Educational Consultants Inc. and RT Myers 123 at gmail.com.
That's awesome. All right, Bo, I'm gonna stay with me. I'm gonna say thank you to everybody for watching. For those of you who know him, you already knew he was gonna be awesome. Please remember to share. This has been awesome, Bo. I think this has been a great interview. I think you're just an amazing person. I want people to share that with as many people as possible. And the people you share it with, tell them to share it with, okay? I think people will like this interview, this person. All right, Bo, I'm going to pause.